You're listening to the IT Career Energizer Podcast, Episode 6.
Welcome to the IT Career Energizer Podcast. For anyone who wants to build and grow a career in IT, develop and improve your strengths and skills, be inspired and motivated by the successes of others, manage your career progression, and achieve your IT career goals. And now, your host, Phil Burgess.
Welcome to the IT Career Energizer Podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the podcast, you can do so by visiting itcareerenergizer.com. I'd also be very interested in hearing your thoughts about the podcast, including potential guests to have on the show and topics to be covered. So without further ado, here's Episode 6. Matthew Moran joins me on the IT Career Energizer today. Matthew is an experienced project manager, application developer, business analyst and CIO. He is author of the book Building Your IT Career, a Complete Toolkit for a Dynamic Career in Any Economy, and also a songwriter and performer, which he often incorporates into his presentations. So Matthew, can you give us a little bit more about yourself and maybe expand upon that brief introduction?
Sure. I guess what I would say is I'm a kind of a homegrown, technology passionate individual. So I self-taught, taught myself programming back in high school, really on a whim. Did not realize it would become a career. Have always written and performed, and so more or less, I carry a very proactive attitude, whether it's IT careers or performing or the writing I've done, and that's served me very well. So I think when people, when I speak to either IT professionals or students that have been using my book, for instance, I have a very kind of proactive approach. It's not that I'm saying don't go through a formalized structure, but I'm saying beyond that, you need to have an engaged interest in what you're trying to achieve that goes well beyond academically what you're learning. You have to be running ahead of the game, as it were, if you want to be, I don't even want to say competitive, if you just want to experience as much success as is possible for you. Okay, great.
It sounds like this is an area that you have a lot of interest in.
Yeah, I've always been, a believer that, particularly in things like IT, that there is a huge element of, a meritocracy, as it were, that if you go out there and produce value and produce solutions for people that, and pay attention, be a good student of good career, I guess, strategies and attitudes, that you can do very well, regardless of economy or area, of the country, and so I try and offer that kind of insight. I do have a passionate interest in most things, in the things that I do in I guess, proactive achievement.
Can you share with us a unique career tip that the IT Career Energizer audience need to know and probably don't?
Well, something that I say often is there's a quote that's often stated, and I think it's overused and a bit too simplistic, and that's the statement, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
And I turn that around because I think that's a little bit cynical. It seems to imply this notion that you don't have to know anything, you just have to know the right people. And I can tell you, I don't think that's true. People don't want to hire, even if you know somebody, they don't want to hire somebody who's not going to produce. So I modified that statement. It was in both my books, and I've written about it several times in my blog. The statement I use is, it's who knows you and knows what you know. And so it's important not just that you know people, but they know you and know what you can do.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the thing that's critical.
No, I agree. It's definitely the value. It's the value aspect, because if somebody's going to engage you, they need to know that you can do what they need you to do. They won't just engage you for the sake of just knowing you.
Exactly. I mean, even if I know somebody really well, if I know that they have a poor attitude or they're not really that engaged in the process, I'd rather have somebody that I know marginally, that I see a great attitude, that is fully engaged in learning and solving problems.
Can you tell us a bit about your worst IT career moment?
Sure. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was mentioning this to my son, who's doing some technology work for a client of mine. He's in the process of learning. I was developing software for a large insurance company, and we were doing a big presentation with a vendor coming in that we were doing this document assembly process. I came in early to just add a few flourishes to the product, and in doing so, I was working in a development, a staging, and a production environment, mistakenly having them all in a series of subdirectories under a master directory, which I learned going forward I wouldn't have happened. Right. This is back in 93, I guess. And when I came in, I had moved the production environment, or the development environment, or I guess the test environment, into production. And then I just said, I don't need this old stuff, and I was going to copy back the production environment over the development environment and just start from there, because everything had been released. And I deleted from the directory above that, and as it was deleting, it was taking a long time, and I was going, gosh, this is really taking a long time, and suddenly some of the people in the department that were using my product started saying, hey, this isn't working, and I realized what I had done. We had a meeting in about an hour. I ran downstairs, and fortunately they had a backup from the night before, so the changes I had made that morning were lost, but they were able to recover it. I came into the meeting about 9:15, 15 minutes later, with my boss glaring at me, not knowing what was going on. Right. And in the end, we were able to have a successful presentation, but it was terrifying. I thought that was my career. I thought it was going right there.
Right. What did you learn from that? Was there anything you took away from that which you've used subsequently?
Well, yeah, one of those things is, and this is kind of always the case, I'm really big on, when I'm making major changes to an environment or a development project, I will copy the entire project onto an external device, verify that it's there, and then remove that device from the system if I'm going to be deleting or moving anything.
Yeah.
And it's just served me well in many cases to be hyper paranoid about the backups I keep.
Sure. So really focusing on forward planning to make sure you don't catch yourself out.
Right. The truth is, during moments of high pressure and stress, we often don't take care of things like documentation and backups. And so, making a backup, the night before, or having some automated system and testing those, knowing that the backup is working, and I call that kind of doing the pre-work that you need to do so it's easy to do that. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. So stopping for a little bit, saying, okay, instead of just rushing forward, what are some protections I can put in place before I start this? Because down the road, it's going to save me time.
Very good. So moving on from your worst moment, can you share with us your IT career highlight or greatest success and how you're able to achieve it?
Well, I think it's kind of repeated from time to time, and I view it as when you can come into a client and have them issue a statement like, you didn't just change the way we work, you kind of changed our life, or you changed the way, we can never go back to how we thought before. And I've had that happen with a few companies where, I'm just in the process of writing a blog today about the underutilization of technology. And most companies purchase technology, and they end up purchasing more technology than they need because they're finding little tools, maybe a new server that does X, Y, Z, when technology that was already in place would have achieved this goal. They just don't realize it exists. And this isn't the fault of the vendors all the time, because sometimes vendors are so focused on one item. And so for me, it's the constant, I guess, achievement of saying, no, you don't have to go buy that new thing. You have something in place, or you can maximize what you currently have, or is this something you really need to accomplish? And when a client comes back and says, wow, we've never experienced this kind of, I guess, the mindset of let's maximize value, and IT is meant to be a value proposition, not just a necessary expense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I often think that companies maybe lose sight of what their purpose is in terms of what they're trying to achieve. And maybe a shiny tool comes along which looks like it suits their needs, but when you actually get down to find out what it is they're trying to achieve, it doesn't necessarily fit.
I would say that's often the case. Almost all the time with CRMs. Of course, I have a love-hate relationship with CRMs in general. I just think most of them do way more than is needed and far less than is necessary, right? So far less of what is vital and way more than is ever needed.
What one thing excites you about the future of a career in IT?
I think the idea that if done properly, you have a high degree of flexibility. You can move between disciplines because except for the highly siloed, large IT department where people work in X or Y technology, for a lot of companies, they don't make a distinction between the guy that's running their network and somebody who develops applications. Technology is technology. And so that affords you the ability to move into new areas and learn new things which may not be available to all careers.
Yeah. And do you think that's likely to increase in terms of the amount of opportunities that people will have? Obviously, IT is an area that is continually changing and developing. Presumably, that can only get more so.
I think so. I think there are, certainly consolidations. But what I feel is that, once again, because IT is is always focused on the what have you accomplished, this month, or what have you accomplished this past year, and the truth is, most of the tools and training are readily available online. At the risk of having my publisher unhappy with me because they are an academic publisher and they do focus on textbooks and learning, which I'm not knocking. But with the prevalence of online learning that's available and let's just say YouTube and a variety of tools. Free Code Camp is a place I put people all the time if you want to learn coding and JavaScript and Node and all those tools. What's exciting is that you don't have, if you take a passionate interest, you can learn something new. You can learn video editing tomorrow and start that process and add that to your career toolkit and potentially move in that direction virtually immediately.
So we're going to move into the quick fire reveal round. So there's a number of quick questions to ask. So what attracted you to a career in IT?
Well, and I'll have to reveal a little bit.
Right.
I never realized I was going to be in an IT career. I just liked using technology tools to solve things, and suddenly people started paying me to do that.
Ah, right. So you enjoyed the process of being a problem solver.
I always tell people you have a chance to be a hero, why not be a hero?
What is the best career advice you've ever received?
I was doing sales for a copier company. I didn't really like the process. I liked the owner of the company, but I just didn't feel like I was really making a huge difference to sell somebody X copier versus Y copier. Didn't change their life much. But the owner took me to lunch and he said, careers and professional development is like it's like an island off in the distance, and you're floating in a current with a bunch of people, and a lot of people are satisfied to let the current take them where they will and hope it gets them to the island. And the person who is going to achieve something will set out and just swim out of the current and start going towards the island. And you risk the sharks and you risk everything else, but in the end, the reward is much greater. And so it was this idea of being very self-directed. You don't have to follow what everyone says they're doing. I don't believe there are such thing as rules that define how you advance your career. For instance, I always tell people avoid the help desk. I know a lot of people like to start there, and I say the last place you want to start your career is the help desk. And so that's kind of my I guess I would be the best advice was chart a course and go for it.
If you were to begin your IT career again right now, what would you do?
I would focus on one of two areas, either web development in some of the newer, I guess, document-based databases like MongoDB and Node and Express as a platform, or I would focus on internal company automation and using products like VBA and automating, having Excel read from multiple data sources and generating reports for companies. And through that, you expose yourself to a lot of business process, but also a lot of user value. They really see a high value result of that work.
What career objectives are you focusing on right now?
Well, I have a software that I'm developing, so I have I'm looking to get some funding for that. I won't divulge a lot, but it's something I've had in my mind to do for many years. And then I'm really looking at advancing some of the writing I'm doing. I mentioned a project to you earlier, a video series on building a consulting business. And in conjunction with that, I have my own consulting company, and we are doing some things to expand that here in Southern California.
What's the number one non-technical skill that has helped you in your career?
Some people would say it would be kind of my personality and willingness to speak to people. I think the most critical career, though, is the ability to quickly recognize where the business will see the most value of the technology you're putting into place, and being able to understand that business. I take a passionate interest in what my customers, my clients do, in so much as I become an expert of their business. I enjoy that process. It isn't just here's some tools, but it's I had a company that did manufacturing of refrigeration door enclosures years ago. And I just remember after that, I'd see their product and I'd see their competitors' products, and I would speak to the engineers about the stuff they were doing that made their product superior. And I would notice those things because I took an interest, stuff that I would never do, like how they built the lighting. So I guess it's my interest, my passionate interest in what my customers do.
Yeah, I suppose with that sort of outlook, you probably had... You probably learnt about a lot of different industries and different businesses, which obviously helps to retain that level of interest as well.
Well, I think what it does is if I start thinking the way they're thinking, I can start seeing solutions. I go, oh, okay, this is what they're doing. This is how we can really help them. And one of my kind of strong pieces of advice for IT professionals is don't do technology to people, right? So a lot of companies feel like technology is done to them. It's an imposition. It's something that slows them down. They have to learn this, and it's burdensome. There's a dream it can be more than that, but it often proves to be something different. And I think if you take an interest in what they're doing, see what they're doing, you can start to go, wait, is what I'm doing here really helping them, or is it making their life more difficult? And how can I make their lives easier?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Can you share a parting piece of career advice with the IT Career Energizer audience?
I guess it would be this, is I kind of alluded to it before. It would be, go online quickly and start learning a variety of tools and technologies. Don't be siloed to think your technology is the best. I always tell people, as a matter of fact, my standard answer to when people say, oh, you're a tech guru, I say, oh, don't call me that. I'm a business solutions specialist, and technology is just a tool. And so my piece of advice would be, don't become technology-centric, even if you specialize in a technology, because we often have blinders and say, this technology is the best because we're better at it, rather than I solve business problems and I use these tools. And so focus on what you solve, not what you do.
And finally, what's the best way that we can find out more about you and connect with you?
So you can find me online at MatthewMoranOnline.com. That's my kind of general writing, also music site. I do music, but it links to the IT Career Toolkit. I hope that's not in competition. I hope that dovetails with what you do nicely.
It does.
Where I offer career advice, information about my book. I have a podcast on there as well. And, from between those two places, you could track me down on Facebook and anywhere else.
Thanks, Matthew. It's been great talking to you on the IT Career Energizer podcast today.
Thank you. You as well. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's chat with Matthew Moran. You can find full show notes at itcareerenergizer.com/E6. If you are enjoying the IT Career Energizer podcast, please remember to subscribe in iTunes to get episodes downloaded automatically every week. In the next episode, I'll be talking with Matt Robson, who is Director of Consultancy and Solutions Delivery at Testing Solutions Group.
Thanks for listening to the IT Career Energizer podcast. To find out more about building a successful career in IT, visit itcareerenergizer.com.